mold for what it's worth. Okay.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Ancel Hamilton with Biotek Environmental is joining me right now. Ancel, your company goes in and in situations like this, and I know you're going to be crazy busy with trying to help people, but we want to make sure they get solid advice because already we're starting to see scammers go around. So we want to let our viewers know what they need to know in getting the water out and how that process should work. The first thing to note is this is not clean water, correct?
That's correct.
Even though it came from the rain and such, it is at this point considered contaminated?
That's correct. Anytime you have a flood situation like this, you have a lot of things in the water. Could be chemicals, could be sewage, could be any one of a number of things. So it is considered what they call a Category 3 water loss. And as a result of that, there's ways that you treat it in terms of the remediation and the drying and so forth that are different from what you would do if you had a leak in your home from a faucet, for example.
So treating it like in what capacity? With chemicals?
Well, no. First you want to remove anything that's been touched by the water. For example, if you have drywall, if you have baseboards and so forth that have been wet and touched by the water, that needs to be removed. And the general, the guideline for that is 2 feet beyond any contaminated material or wet material.
2 feet beyond. So really a lot of these homes are going to end up just being gutted.
Well, perhaps. It depends on how the water was. But if you have a leak that came in and is 6 inches up into your house, then you would want to go that 6 inches plus 2 feet more to get everything out. If you have sofas and other items that are soft goods that were wet, those typically are going to have to be disposed of. There's really not much way to salvage that.
Okay, so there's no like doing some kind of vacuum that sucks out the water. At this point, it's too much in there and
well, the issue is
contaminated.
You've got contamination in there, and it's going to be almost impossible or certainly cost prohibitive to get it out.
Okay, let's talk about flooded basements. For those people who have basements, what do they need to be doing today?
Well, if your basement is flooded, be aware that you may also have some of the same contaminants in the water that came from your basement. Basements may be flooded from below. If it's being flooded from below, it's a little different than it is when it's come from a flood situation. But in any event, you want to be cautious about what may be in the water. You also want to remove the water a little more slowly because you don't know what will happen with the walls of the foundation.
Because there's a pressured system in place right at that point, and if that water is brought out very quickly, is there the possibility something could cave in? That's
correct, because you've got a tremendous amount of water pressure in the ground. The ground is saturated. You really don't know what's going on under that house and in that basement situation, so you need to be a little bit cautious about it. Same thing with swimming pools. There are some swimming pools, for example, in Kings Grant, there are swimming pools that have springs below them. If you empty the swimming pool too quickly, it may float out, or if you empty it and don't get water back in, you could have the sides collapse. There are a lot of things that can go wrong if you don't take a methodical kind of an approach to it.
You know what? I hadn't even thought about swimming pools, but those two are an issue right now. Crawl spaces, go through for our viewers what they need to know about water in their crawl spaces.
Okay, crawl space at this point, while significant and important to get dried and remediated, the biggest things there, you've got ductwork that may be under there, and the ductwork will need to be removed if it was wet. Same thing with the air conditioning systems, hot water heaters, and that sort of thing. If, however, it's not entered into your home, it's less urgent to get that dried as from an industry perspective as it is for someone who's had water in their home. It needs to be dried. It needs to be dried relatively quickly because of the mold possibility, but right now the focus should be on getting the inside of your home taken care of, and if you just have a crawl space situation, certainly you need to address that rapidly and aggressively.
Well, you said the four-letter word, mold, and I want to really touch on that because that can be such an unhealthy issue for so many people. Who needs to be most concerned about, well, who all needs to be concerned, I should say, about mold? Obviously, if the place is drenched, we know that could be an issue. But what about for those viewers watching who maybe just had some water kind of seep in and it's in the carpet and wet to the touch? At what point do they need to worry about mold? Well,
your carpet, if it's been wet, it needs to be removed at this point, again, because of the contamination in there. If it has touched the wood of your home or the floor of your home, that's the subfloor or hardwood floors for that matter, typically it's going to have to be removed, and certainly you want to be concerned about what's between the floors and potential for mold growing there or under the floors in a crawl space environment. You also, if you've got mold in a wall cavity or on a surface, mold needs 48 to 72 hours to begin to grow, and if the conditions are right, it can grow very rapidly after that. So anytime you've got water like this, the objective is to dry it very quickly. The other thing that people may not think about is that in parts of the home that were unaffected by moisture, because now they have no air conditioning, which helps to dehumidify, you can begin to get mold growth on surfaces because of just the high relative humidity in the home. So you need to try to condition the rest of your home if you can.
Visually, obviously, we would be able to see some of that mold in our homes on walls and such. But as far as underneath, what are the telltale signs? Because I fear some people won't go through the process of looking under there. We can smell it, can't we? And at that point, is it too late?
Well, if you can smell it, you already have mold growth, obviously,
yeah.
because it's, for lack of a better comparison, it's kind of like a flower. When it's blooming and it's growing, it's happy, and you've got an odor associated with it. Certainly can have it other times as well. But if you have, for example, porous surfaces, a baseboard against drywall, you really got to get that taken apart because the mold will grow in between those. Point is, anything that's wet, you really need to get it out, and you really need to get it dried as quickly as you can.
Okay. You have given valuable, valuable information to our viewers. I want to pick your brain a little bit more. The process, what do they need to do before they get somebody like Biotek, your company, or somebody else out there? What do they need to be doing in their house until they can get the professionals out there to do the cleaning and the true restoration of it?
Well, you need to get the contents that are damaged and so forth out of your home. If you have the ability to get carpet and so forth out, then certainly do that. And many people don't have flood insurance, and they don't have any. It's going to be a very expensive and difficult process for them. So we're working with a number of clients who are doing the first phase themselves of doing some of the demolition. We're happy to help with them and help them guide on what they need to do so they can get that out, and we can then come in and do the cleaning and get it dried, and that accelerates that process to some degree. The other thing you mentioned is selecting a person to come in. I strongly suggest that they try to find local vendors first if possible, because we are already beginning to see scammers come in and people who come from out of state and they chase disasters. Some of these people are very good, some of them are not very good. So if you can find a local company, and there are a lot of us around here who are reputable, I would encourage you to try to do that first and do your homework. If you have access to the internet, which many of you won't, do some research and find out about the company before you hire them and before you put the future of your house at risk. If they don't do the drying properly, if they don't take care of it correctly, then 6 or 8 months down the road, you'll have a mold issue, and now you're right back to a very expensive proposition. So just be cautious about who you select.
When you do, I know your company does the carpet cleaning as well, and I always think of that carpet cleaning as being able to suck up the moisture from the ground. But for those with just a slight bit, you're saying at this point that may not even be enough.
If it's been wet by the flood groundwater, our recommendation is going to be to discard it, and insurance companies typically will support that position.
Okay. Is there anything else you want them to know while I have you here? Because I know your day is crazy busy.
No, just at the end of the day, again, be cautious about your approach. Do have a sense of urgency, but don't look at this as a sprint. It's more of a long-term kind of a race. This is not going to be resolved overnight. It's going to take some time to get the demolition done, to get the drying done, and so forth, and just do it as quickly as you can, but don't panic about it. Okay.
Have you been able to go and look at the Lake Catherine area yet?
I have, yes.
It's some places would like a well, I keep saying like a war zone. It's terribly sad to see how much has been pulled out of there. Ancel, I appreciate you coming by and letting me interview you and give our viewers valuable information.